Welcome back to the Mute Your Mic podcast. I'm Reggie. I'm so excited to be here today. You know, I should be doing an opening, but I am going to throw a curveball to my co-host and our lovely guest today, Ms. Sam Fisher. I'm not going to open it up at all. I'm going to open it with you all in a question. I've been thinking about a new segment for this show, and the segment is called Give Me 40. And so I want 40 seconds from you. It doesn't really have to be actually 40 seconds, but I just want to know 40 seconds worth of stuff about you. So I'm going to go first. So James, prepare yours. Caitlin, Sam, I want to know about you. This is your elevator speech. How many times have we sat in a 4-H meeting and they say, you need to have that elevator speech because that county board executive, that donor, they're going to be there. And if you can't tell them what you do and why you're important, you're going to miss an opportunity. Well, today is that day, all right? But it doesn't have to be about 4-H. It can be just about you. Curveball. All right, so I'll start. Everybody, my name is Reggie. Today's Wednesday, and it's a good day. Feeling good, feeling happy, drinking a lot of water. That may make today's episode very interesting for me, but we're going to have a good time. I'm excited because today we're going to talk about something serious. And Sam, that reminds me of a story we're going to tell on this podcast later on. You know where I'm going. We're going to have a good time today. We're going to talk a lot about camp. We're going to talk a lot about COVID, but we're also going to talk about good people and relationships. That's my 40. Caitlin, what up?
That 40 wasn't about you at all. That was an intro to the podcast.
Oh, tricked you.
Anywho, my name is Caitlin, everybody, 4-H agent, unit coordinator in the great county of Arlington, which, did you know, used to be the county of Alexandria before they figured out that was way too confusing for a nearby city of Alexandria? Some other fun facts about Arlington: there are a lot of people there. You get there on a number of highways that no one enjoys driving on. You can get there on an Amtrak now. You can get there via a large airport, which is pretty conveniently located. And Arlington's great, and everyone should come visit. But maybe park somewhere else and take a bus in, because it'll be hard to find a place to put your car. That was my 40, not about myself, but about a great locality in Virginia. James, tell me 40 seconds about literally anything.
So I was about to say, so I guess we're just talking about anything at all, but I'm gonna go ahead and stick with a topic that I know the most about, and that would be me. So my name is James Mason. I am the 4-H agent in Sussex County, Virginia, that is, because there is another Sussex County in another state, I'm pretty sure of it, but we're here in Virginia. I enjoy to do a lot of healthy activities such as running, playing basketball, football, anything that'll get me active and up. I also enjoy playing video games. If anybody doesn't know that, you should know that now because I just told you. And the video games that I play are all sports related most of the time. I sometimes play Fortnite just to tease the kids at work. But that is my 40 seconds. Now we're going to pass it to Sam.
Oh my, 40 seconds. Is somebody timing this?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just talk about it then.
I'm
Sam Fisher. My name is actually Sandra. Sam is a nickname that I got way back in elementary school. So I've been Sam for a lot of years, but I'm the 4-H camping specialist for the state of Virginia. Have been with Extension for almost 30 years and love it. I live in Wythe County on the New River, one of the oldest rivers in the world and one of the only two that runs north. So it's a very interesting place. I have a lot of kayaks and canoes. So if you want to come visit me, I also live right across from the New River Trail. So you exercise folks, you can bike, you can hike, or you can run. Just come see me anytime.
Awesome. So you said you have a lot of canoes and kayaks. Is that more of a hobby? Do you have a business? Like what do you do with those things besides getting the water, Caitlin? Because I knew that.
Yeah, it's not a business. It's I had some friends who would come down and visit, and so I just collect what I call toys for them to come. And when friends come, I have the boats here for them to use. I have about 6 sit on top and cockpit kayaks and a canoe. And I've got about 6 or 7 mountain bikes that can be used on the New River Trail. So you don't have to load that stuff up and bring it. I got it.
Let me continue with a goofy question. It sounds like from your description, the New River is poorly named. If you could rename the New River to be more historically accurate, what would you call it?
I would call it the Old River. Because it is, there's only 2 rivers that run, quick question for you guys. There's only 2 rivers that run north in the world. Do you know what they are?
The Nile.
The Nile.
I was gonna say the Nile.
And the New.
Yeah. Hey, interesting fact. Did not even realize that was in Virginia. Hey, you learn something every day. Cool. Sam, how long have you been a part of Virginia 4-H? You already said that.
It's a little over 30 years. A little over 30 years.
You said that.
A couple years of that, I was a volunteer.
You were a 4-H volunteer?
I was a volunteer first, yes.
Tell us about that.
Awesome.
Who did you volunteer with, and what was your role?
Oh my. Well, I worked at a group, residential group home, and the agent at the time asked me if I would start a 4-H club for youth at risk. And so I did. And I started that 4-H club, and for a couple of years, they convinced me to go to camp and take a couple of those kids to camp. That's how I got involved with the camping program. And after a couple of years, got a job with Extension, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Nice, nice. So could you tell me, how did the role of a volunteer change from then to now, since you've been in the game a while?
Ooh, a lot. This was, I'm sure it's before anybody on this podcast was born. The very late 1980s.
Now, Reggie was around.
Was Reggie around? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the late 1980s, let's just say that risk management has evolved through the years significantly. My first training for camp was a one-day, it was like a 10 to 2 training at the 4-H Center. And that was the training you received before you went to camp. It was very interesting, very brief.
And when you say go to camp, like, do you mean like going for a week, or is that point you were going to be staff?
No, I was a volunteer.
Okay.
Who was going to go to camp and spend the week, because I didn't feel comfortable just sending my kids from the group home. I decided I needed to go with them, so I volunteered for the week. So I was an adult volunteer at camp.
Sam, tell me about that first camp experience, because I remember my first camp experience, but I have not yet gone on to become a camping specialist. So I'm wondering if your first camp experience, was it an instant, this is what I need to do? Is it a slow burn? How did that develop?
Oh, girl, you have opened a can of worms.
That's what we're here for.
My first experience, I was completely clueless. I never had a camp experience. I'd never been to camp, so I wasn't sure what to expect. And so the agent put me in one of the girls' cabins, and I didn't realize that the adults had a special place where they were supposed to sleep. And so when I went into the cabin, there was a little room that was for adults or whatever, but there were already things on the bed that had been claimed. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll sleep in here in one of these bunk rooms. At that time, the beds were military metal bunks with springs. They were very short. I'm very tall. The springs, when I laid down in the bed at night, the springs almost touched the floor. The agent did not ask me until about halfway through the week how things were going and was I sleeping okay? And then she realized that I was sleeping in the wrong room. But even after that, I experienced, especially with those kids from the group home, I saw the magic of camp.
Awesome.
And camp is magic.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about some of the other roles you fulfilled prior to your specialist position now.
Well, I was, my first job with Extension was as a program director at the Southwest Center. And I served as a program director for about 9 years. And then moved from there to the center director for another 11 years. So I spent 20 years at the Southwest Center as either a program director or center director, and then came on to the state as the state specialist.
I have long been in awe of people who work at the 4-H centers, the camp staff, the camp program directors, the center directors. Where do you all get your energy?
I just love it. And you know, when you love what you do, and you guys know this, when you love what you do, it just comes. You know, I lived on site all 20 years, and people are like, you lived there for 20 years? I rarely missed a dance at any of the camps. I mean, you guys remember you were there for a week. Well, we would have 10 weeks of camp, and at Southwest, we had a dance every night. And that was one of my favorite things, was to go to the dances. And so I'd go home and I'd sit on my porch and listen, and it was like I just couldn't stand it. I had to go up and participate and have fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're telling me there's no secret supply of caffeine?
And, you know, I'm single and I didn't really go to life, so that's... Do what?
You're telling me there's no secret supply of caffeine in the water at centers, or coffee hidden under tables? That's amazing.
No. And see, I'm not a coffee drinker, so it was Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay.
Got to get that caffeine from somewhere. So Sam, I know we talked a lot about your camping experiences. What is your favorite part about being a specialist?
My favorite part is being able to go across the state to all the different centers and all the different programs that are out there. You know, as a center director or a program director at a center, you're in your own little world. But now I've had the opportunity to experience that magic all across the state, at every center and in all the different programs. I never got to do Congress before I became a specialist, so I had that experience, and that's an awesome experience. So being able to experience this across the state is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective. And you mentioned the word experiences, and we are living through an experience right now with COVID, and it's caused us to change quite a few things. And one of those big things is our camping program. Caitlin and I were able to do a virtual camp, and it was great, but it wasn't our traditional 4-H camp. So can you talk a little bit about how COVID has not only affected you and your job, but just the centers, or just a little bit about how the COVID effect on the camping program in Virginia?
Right. To say that this year not having camp in person was a disappointment, I think is understating it. It was really tough, but Virginia rose above it. We had some awesome virtual programs. There were programs in a box. I mean, some great programming came out this summer, but it wasn't the same. We're hoping that 2021 we're going to be in person. But from the center's aspect, it was really, really tough. When things shut down with COVID, keep in mind that centers make their income, they're not state funded, and so their income comes from user groups that come to the center and camping fees. All total, over 6 centers, there's about a $4 million loss for all 6 centers right now. We're working now to try to shorten that gap with some fundraising. We've had great support from the field, from you guys, talking us up, helping with fundraisers, t-shirt fundraisers, all kinds of things that are going on out there. We're getting ready to launch a fundraising campaign to help all 6 of the centers. But, you know, they're our centers. They're your centers. They're not my centers. They're not the center director's centers. They're your centers. They were built for you guys. And Virginia has a very unique structure with our centers. A lot of states, the universities own the centers and they take care of all the budgets and things. In Virginia, it was set up purposely so that they're all 501c3s and they are self-supporting. Now that's a two-edged sword during this time of COVID, but yeah, that's where we're at.
So I've heard that at least the Northern Center, they are renting out their cabins to people who might want to get away, want to social distance, want to get out of super urban Virginia or wherever you might be. So that's an option for folks who are looking for a getaway. Is there anything else maybe our audience should know, or ways that they could support the centers, or even if they've never had an experience with them, learn a little bit more about them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Northern Center has done a great job. They had their fireworks display a few weeks back for Labor Day. Was Labor Day, right? Yeah. But opening up their facilities with social distancing, of course, but opening up those facilities for families to come and enjoy some fishing in Lake Culpeper, or some hiking on the trails, shoot some basketball, spend some family time outside. All the centers are available for those type activities. Not all, and each one have different facilities to offer. I mean, at Jamestown, they've got the river there. They've got canoes and kayaks. Airfield has paddle boats and trails. Holiday Lake is right there on Holiday Lake and has some great opportunity to hike around the lake, to fish. Again, there's boating activities. They have the individual cabins for folks. The Skelton Center is on Smith Mountain Lake. Beautiful, beautiful site, great facilities, lots of opportunity to hike, to boat, to fish, and just an opportunity for families to get outside.
Yeah, it's tough to hear the struggles of the 4-H Center. I mean, I know in a prosperous year camp-wise, it's a tough road. So especially in a situation like this where, you know, their main audience, the 4-H campers, aren't able to participate, it's tough to hear. But I also hope that this is giving them an opportunity to look at some business practices or some alternative ways of raising revenue, alternative ways that we as 4-H agents can support them. I was able to partner with Katie from the Northern Center to do some team building work with one of the schools in my locality that is doing in-person schooling. And I'm thinking this is a great service that you could do now in COVID, but with the caveat that, hey, I can come visit you all right now in September. Why don't you come visit me again in May or June, and we'll do a follow-up, and I'll tie you into the 4-H agent, and then they can work with you through the years. There's a lot of opportunities for synergy that we don't think about, because honestly, when I view the 4-H Center, I'm thinking 4-H camp. I have junior camp and everything that goes on with it, but there's so many different opportunities. So I hope that this is giving them and us agents a time to rethink our partnership and position when it comes to the 4-H centers.
Absolutely, Reggie. They're a resource and they're there to support you. And they've got a lot of knowledge and tools in the toolbox that they can use to come out and support your programs and help you.
So sort of transitioning, taking into account all the things that COVID has meant for 4-H programming, in addition to being our 4-H camping specialist, at least in my mind, and maybe officially, you are the person to go to for risk management. So I imagine you've been very involved with programming as it has adapted these past couple of months. What are some of the bright spots? What are some of the things, the programs you've seen that you think never would have happened without COVID, and it's really cool?
Right. Well, you know, the virtual livestock shows. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch the National 4-H Farm On concert. but the Augusta, Virginia 4-H program was highlighted in that for their virtual livestock show. They were the first ones to really do that, I think, and it was pretty awesome. But all the virtual programs that have come out, we just recently, this past weekend, had the state 4-H shoot, and it was awesome. The numbers, we had limited numbers, of course, but the folks that showed up, the protocols that we had in place with the face coverings and hand washing, social distancing, we were able to make all that work. The parents, the coaches, the volunteers, all were cooperating, and it was a great shoot. We had a great time. But just the awesome programming that's happening across the state that you guys are leading.
Nice. Well, a shout out to Ms. Emily Edwards in Augusta County. Nice job. And now you have to watch the podcast so you'll see where I mentioned you.
All right. Well, Sam, so I know you were talking about all the wonderful jobs that we're doing out here doing this virtual programming season. What do you see the future of 4-H camp going?
I think 4-H camp is going to change a little bit. I'm not sure what it's going to, we don't know what it's going to look like in 2021. We hope it's going to be in person. We are striving for in person, but what that in person is going to look like, will social distancing and face coverings, and will we have to limit numbers? What is our programming going to look like? We don't know, but we're trying to think ahead and plan, working with other camp professionals in the field, American Camp Association, those folks trying to stay abreast of, the most current trends and news that's coming out. The most frustrating thing is wait and see. And I know you guys feel that frustration as well. It's just like, well, we just have to wait and see because we just don't know. But we're gonna move forward. Camp is an experience, not a place. So whatever happens, it's gonna happen, and we're gonna have that experience.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said earlier, there's some positives that are coming out of this, and I think that if we continue to look for those positives, the teamwork aspect of it, I know I feel more connected to people now than I did when we had the ability to physically go see them and move around. I mean, it could be because we're talking and looking in Zoom and all that kind of stuff. That did not sound right. But I feel the connection. So I hope as we transition back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is, I hope that we continue all of that. I said all of that to give you an opportunity, Sam, to tell our audience, because I think we do have some viewers that may not have a 4-H experience or 4-H camping experience. I want to leave you an opportunity with the last word before Caitlin takes us to our next segment. What should people know about Virginia 4-H camping? What is it that if a stranger walked up to you and they said, hey, you have on that shirt, and what does it mean? What is it that you're going to tell them?
Well, I'm going to ask them first, have you ever experienced the magic of 4-H camp? And then I'm going to tell them about those experiences that youth have, the opportunity for youth to come and have fun, make new friends, learn leadership skills, experience activities that they might not experience otherwise. I know that you guys have noticed when kids get, and maybe you haven't, when kids get off the bus, one of my favorite things was to sit and watch kids get off the bus on the first day of camp. And they would be very timid, and they would taking that luggage up there, and they're looking around. They're not talking to very many people, and they're very quiet. And a couple of days later, they're completely different children. They're laughing, they're cutting up, they're being silly, they're having fun. It's a completely different atmosphere. And just watching what I call magic happen through the week is just amazing. And sharing that with people who haven't had that experience, I think, is important.
Amazing. 4-H camp is certainly a unique experience. There is nothing else like it that I've ever seen. And we'll be back there. We'll be back there soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, let me take you into what 2/3 of the Mute Your Mic podcast team agrees is the best round or best segment of the podcast. Reggie was the only naysayer.
Yeah, put
The
a name
lightning
on it.
round.
Put a name on it.
I wanted to leave it to the imagination for 5 seconds. Anywho, Sam, as you probably know, lightning round works like this. We're going to ask you a bunch of goofy questions and just tell us what comes to mind first. Make sense?
First thing that pops in my mind.
All right.
First thing. Point of order, please.
Okay.
Was said host supposed to have questions prepared for this segment as an individual?
Don't worry. I have my lightning round questions.
So do I.
Yeah. Well, I'm coming in loose on the back end, so it doesn't matter.
So
I'm
I'll go
scared.
first and then send it to James and Reggie. Hopefully that'll give you enough time to think of something. But hope you didn't write it down because you don't have your glasses on.
Oh, thank you for that. All right.
All right, back to business. Sam, if there were to be a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
Oh my. Oh my. Angelina Jolie.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can drink.
Okay.
Yeah,
can.
why not?
All right. So, if you are eating grits, is it sugar or salt?
Grits. Do I have to eat them?
You don't have to.
That's your answer. I'll take that.
That's your answer. I'll take it.
No, not a grit
Sam, can you please tell me your favorite professional wrestler?
fan. Wahoo McDaniel.
Did you
See,
just
I
make
knew
up
you
a
had
name?
No, that's a real person.
I'm gonna
We've had
Google
this
that.
conversation.
I'll Google
Yes.
that later.
Grandmothers.
Yes.
Sam, which animal best represents your personality?
Oh, I don't know. Koala bear.
Oh, and why?
Because I'm lovable.
All right. Okay. You got this podcast thing down, Sam.
She got it. So my question will be beach or field?
Beach or field?
Yeah, like a camping field. I didn't want to call it the woods because I felt like it was country. So I was like field.
Well, I'm gonna have to stick in the country.
There we go.
Okay.
I take back my reservation. I didn't think anyone would say field, but
Not everybody's a beach person, Kate.
Live your
Not
truth.
everybody's a beach person.
I think it depends on. So when you heard the word field, what image came into mind?
Cornfield.
Caitlin? Cornfield. Okay, I was thinking about a wheat field, just wheat blowing in the air.
Next time it's
was
going
thinking-
it's
I was thinking about the summer I spent on a milkweed study where I had to go outside Williamsburg and measure hundreds of milkweed plants. Like, how long are the leaves? How many leaves does it have? How thick is the stem? Move 2 feet. Do it again for hours and hours, and ticks and sun and
I see why.
little flash from the past.
I see
I
why.
wasn't there, and I feel triggered. So
Say the word field around me.
Sorry, won't happen again.
Yowzers. Okay, Sam, if you were stranded on a desert island and you only could pack one meal, and this meal had to come from 4-H camp, what would that meal be?
And from which center?
Ooh.
That'll work too.
Ooh, that's tough because I ate a lot of meals at camp. As a matter of fact, I was one of the few people I'm sure that ate 3 meals a day, every week of camp at camp. Hot dogs are my favorite.
Do you have a particular brand?
No, just a hot dog.
Okay.
Nope, not picky, And all centers do hot dogs, and except I will stick with Southwest chili.
All right. This is a 2-part question. Part 1, what is one thing you love that everybody else hates? And what's one thing you hate that everybody else loves?
Well, one thing I hate that everybody else loves is ranch dressing. Not a ranch fan.
That fits the bill.
Something I love, I guess maybe early mornings. I'm a morning person.
All right. I'll buy it.
All right. So, what is your go-to movie?
Oh my, there's so many. I'm a big, huge movie fan. I have lots of go-to movies. Oh gosh, you make me pick one.
All right, you can do three. Give you top three.
That's still not enough. I like all the sports movies like Field of Dreams, Sandlot,
Bend It Like Beckham.
The what?
Bend It Like Beckham.
Not so much, but yeah.
That is right in your lane, Caitlin. That is right in your lane.
I was thinking more, Remember the Titans, things like that.
Classic. That's a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love those movies. I'm a big Disney fan, so I love all the Disney movies.
Reggie, did something just happen?
My question. I'm trying to rub it back into my brain.
I got one while you deal with that situation.
It was good. I'm trying to jump. All right.
Sam, this one might be a hard one to answer because I don't know if you can produce it like this, but I'm going to ask it just in case. What is a Southern folksy expression that our viewers should know?
A Southern folksy expression?
For example, as we were preparing to have this meeting, you said...
Right. I said I was more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room of rocking chairs.
That'll do. That's great. Thank you very much.
So let me ask you this, Sam. So this is not a lightning round. This is just a more Reggie in your business question. So during COVID time, everybody's been showing new sides of themselves. Some better than others. For you, I've noticed that you have been storytelling.
I have.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the tradition, how you got involved? There's an instrument that you play. I don't want to mispronounce it, so I'm going to allow you to do that. Talk to us a little bit about this, if you don't mind.
I actually have the instrument. It's a mountain dulcimer, and it's actually, it has multiple names. It's an Appalachian dulcimer, a mountain dulcimer, a lap dulcimer. It's from the mountain region, obviously. This is actually one I built at a Rhodes Scholar program at the 4-H Center. But storytelling, I got into storytelling when I was in school. We had a substitute teacher, and she always would come in with a book, and it was always the Jack Tales, and she would tell us those stories when we had a break. And I love those stories. And so I remember that, and I always enjoyed that. And then when I got to the group home, and you guys can relate to this, you've been in a van with a group of kids who want to listen to different radio stations. Maybe not so much now because they all have their own iPods or cell phones, but back then we didn't have that, and it was one radio station. So when I worked at the group home, it was always a battle of the radio station. So I would cut it off and I would storytell. I memorized an entire cassette of Jerry Clower. Y'all don't know who Jerry Clower is, but he was a comedian who was also an extension agent from, he was either Georgia or Alabama. And I memorized his whole repertoire. And when we'd take these trips, I'd cut that radio off and I'd start telling stories.
Awesome. Well, we're going to share some of these stories at the end of this episode, okay? So if you're watching right now, you may get a little fatigued. These guys are talking. I don't care what they're saying. You can fast forward until you get to the stories, because it's something that I think you all would love to see. And this is one of the great things about Extension, about 4-H, about camping. You get to blend everybody's culture together, and people have the opportunity and the freedom to express themselves wholeheartedly. And so that is the camping program to me. Back to lightning round, because I know somebody in here has a couple more questions. Ms. Verdue?
Thank you. And thank you, Sam, for mentioning Jack Tales. I I had forgotten that term, but that's a deep memory for me. I grew up listening to Jack Tales, so thank you for bringing that back up. So here's a question. If you've seen the podcast before, and I have the feeling that you have, you'll notice that in many of our lightning rounds, people pick Chad as the go-to team member in almost any situation. Deserted island, obstacle course. Those are the only two I can think of. Can you give me 3 reasons that someone should pick you to be on their team, or 3 situations where you are the right choice over, I'm sorry, Chad?
Oh my. 3 reasons why?
3 situations, like deserted island or guys grocery games.
Well, on the deserted island, Chad wouldn't have his phone, so that could be an issue. So, and being a little bit older than Chad, the phone's not a big deal for me. So that's one. In the woods, you want me. I think Chad might be high stepping the first time he saw a spider, or Yeah.
Hey, I'm right behind him. That's where they live.
You're in front of him, Reggie.
Gosh, I'm having trouble coming up with a third. I don't know that I would want to be in a canoe with Chad, because if we hit those rapids and he got nervous, we'd both be in the water.
Honestly, I think the best way that question could have been answered. Thank you very much. Chad, if you want to come back on the podcast and defend why you are the right pick for those situations, we would welcome you back.
But
James,
Chad, I love you.
Yeah. James, you got another question before we kick off this new game round?
Yes. Yes, I have one last question. What is the most ridiculous fact that you know?
The most ridiculous fact? Oh, I don't know. I'm struggling with that one. I know a lot of ridiculous facts.
How about what is, I don't know, another word?
Yeah, let me buy you some time there, Sam. James, what's the most ridiculous fact you know?
The most ridiculous fact that I know would be that your
You don't
hair.
have one.
I do. You ready? That your hair continues to grow even after that.
Oh, did you know that your ears do too?
Did not know that. No,
Yes, your ears continue to grow.
See?
Did you know that when the barber starts cutting your ear hair without asking you, you're officially old?
Never had that happen.
And thus concludes today's lightning round.
Thank goodness.
All right, y'all. Here's what we're going to do. I have put in a Taboo link in the group chat. This is the first time we've attempted to play Taboo on this podcast. But I think the way it would work is if we assign who goes first, we give them 60 seconds, they see their words on their screen and try to get everybody else to guess without saying the word, as assuming everyone knows the rules of Taboo. Maybe shouldn't have assumed that. And whoever can get people to guess the most in 60 seconds wins nothing.
Pride, admiration. But go ahead and explain the premise of Taboo for our audience members and maybe some co-hosts who want to be clear on the rules.
James, the way you play Taboo is that the word in red that comes up on the screen on the link that I sent is the word you are trying to get Reggie, Sam, or myself to say. The words underneath the word in red are the words you cannot say, nor can you say the word itself. So in my example, the word I want you to guess is avalanche. I cannot say snow, mountains, falling, skiing, or winter. I have to talk around it. So like when you're someplace really cold and you hear a whoosh, and then all this stuff starts falling down, and if you're skiing, you're in I said skiing. That wouldn't have worked.
And so, but how do we know what somebody's supposed to be the buzzer person, but that's okay. We'll just do it on Scout's honor. That's fine.
How about, yeah, that
Yep.
works. Reggie, you go first.
I bet you would say that. I'm gonna do the intro.
The intro.
Welcome to the first episode of Mute Your Mic Taboo. Ladies and gentlemen, our first contestant is coming from the main streets of Gloucester County. The one, the only, Reggie Morris.
Ah! Hoo.
The crowd goes wild.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Okay.
60 seconds on the clock.
We're off. This is the place when you go to check into a hotel, you walk into the
Lobby.
Lobby.
All right. If you have a piece of clothing in a book, all right. So this is my favorite food of my children. It's a vegetable, comes
Broccoli.
in a can.
Green beans.
Green
Yeah.
beans.
Green beans.
Got it, beans. You wear these in the summertime. People love them. Everybody.
Flip-flops.
Sunshades.
Somebody said it. Sandals.
I said flip-flops.
Sandals.
Nobody. All right. Okay. Whew. All right. The opposite. Nope. All right. This is something where you're cooking outside with fire. You
Grill.
cook the top of a
Head.
building where the rain falls down on.
Gutter.
Roof.
Thank you, roof.
A long 60 seconds.
I know, right?
Oh no. All right. It's done. It's done.
How many did you get?
Oh, score sheet. All right. Let's see. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. The tricky part is hitting. It's tricky. You'll be okay. You're smarter than me. All right, who's next?
James.
Why does Caitlin always manage to duck every game?
I'm the game master, man.
She is phenomenal at ducking. All right. Nope.
I'm gonna introduce you, James, so you have time to get your mind together. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, and that was Not How You Play Taboo by Reggie. Up next, from Greensville, Emporia, and Norfolk State University, we have Mr. James Mason.
All right. So the first
I
word.
love Sam's effects.
This was popular in the 80s.
Atari.
Skateboard.
People used to have
Nintendo.
a comb and they
Jerry
used-
Curl.
Afro.
Afro. There he goes.
That's embarrassing, Reggie.
So this is what you put on a sandwich.
Mayonnaise.
With peanut butter.
Jelly.
Jelly.
Jam.
Jam. There we go. This is a house
Turtleneck.
made of cubes that are cold.
Igloo.
Blue.
There you go. This is little people. Yeah, this is little people that were on a network. They used to run from a person.
Smurfs.
There you go. And that's all the time I have.
Yeah.
I'm over here sweating.
You. Woo.
All right, Sam, is it you or me?
I'll go ahead. Get it over with. All right.
Don't say that. It's so much fun.
Are you ready?
All right. All right.
Introduction.
Reggie, you going to do an intro?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And we're back. This time, this is the lady. If you need to canoe, if you need to camp, or if you just need someone to talk to you, coming to you, Verdue, check in.
Or if something crazy has happened at camp and you need to call someone in a hurry,
Boom. You pick up that phone and you dial Sam Fisher.
All right, here we go. It's actually right behind Reggie's head in that picture.
Palm tree.
Ocean.
Ocean.
Tree.
Water.
Tree.
Oh.
It's a relative that it's not your mom's mom. Oh, I said mom. Never mind.
Grandmother.
Yeah, that was great grandmother. Okay. This is a street, and there's these characters, and it
Sesame
was
Street.
yes. We're looking at each other, and if we took a still of it, it would be a
Snapshot.
Picture.
and
Screenshot.
a more expensive word for
Portrait.
picture is
Portrait.
portrait. Yeah. Okay. Not my brother, but my
Sister, but it's
brothers.
me, oh Lord.
My brother's child would be my
Nephew.
Nephew,
Yes.
niece.
Got a lot of relative questions. That's tough.
Achoo!
Bless you.
Bless you.
Sneeze.
Gesundheit.
Sneeze.
Sneeze.
Keyboard.
Typing.
Piano.
Typewriter.
Piano.
Stevie Wonder.
Piano.
It's a color and it's a fruit.
Orange.
Orange.
Orange, yes.
I was gonna say blue.
When it's cold, you wrap up in a
Parka.
Jacket.
Blanket.
blanket.
Scarf.
I don't know what the time is. Did I? I think
You
I'm
can
over.
stop whatever you want.
I think I'm over.
Oh, that was great. Well, what a nice round of game we've had. Now it's
No,
time
no,
to
no, no,
kick
no,
it
no.
out with a quote.
I feel like we're on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And you're just never going to play the game? That's
No.
what we're doing?
A
All
small rodent that you don't want to find in your home.
Mouse.
Rat.
Skunk.
Yep, mouse. If you are doing a project and you are a child and you need to cut
Science fair.
out something out of
Paper. Paste.
but more specific kind of
Paper mache.
Cardboard.
Construction paper.
construction paper.
Look at you.
It's not a sick bird, it's a
Well bird.
that's too specific of a joke. You could go to
It was-
jail if you do something
Jaywalk.
Bad.
Jaybird.
illegal. Thank you.
Illegal.
Sam
That
had
joke
that one.
was trash.
The thing behind Reggie, the large body of water, is
Ocean.
comprised of
Salt.
Salt
H2O.
water.
salt water.
Salt water. You guys are really
At the first day of college, you are likely to attend
Orientation.
a common food you eat in the morning that is very easy to make, just requires,
Egg.
some.
Coffee.
This is not coffee. Sam?
Scrambled eggs.
A famous musician who's long dead,
Elvis.
It's only about 6 of those.
longer dead.
Beethoven.
Beethoven.
Yeah, just like keep guessing ones like that.
Bach.
I was just sad.
I can't give you any more description.
Mozart.
There you go. We're gonna call that 60 seconds.
Sam, you dodged the bullet. We didn't make you have to draw anything on the whiteboard today.
Ooh, I was worried
Tell
about
me
that.
about.
Yeah. I think everybody's worried about drawing on the whiteboard, but it's okay.
Hannah
Yeah.
was
That's
great at it. Hannah's
It's got talent. It's got
Mhm.
talent.
Back in the days.
Not everybody had that talent.
Have you seen my drawing?
I saw that alligator.
We're gonna let that go, all right?
Running joke for the podcast. Alligator.
Never.
Oh, I want to make one pitch, please. So, starting next week on the podcast, we are introducing a new segment called Give a Clover, which is like giving a shout out to a 4-H or extension colleague, somebody who's done something well. For example, you would type it in and say, I want to give Reggie a shout out for always being willing to play Pictionary, even though it's his least favorite game. So we are going to put the form for these shout outs underneath this episode. And if there's anybody in the extension family you want to give kudos to, just throw it in there and we'll be sure to mention it on next week's episode. And please, someone submit something or I will have made that form for nothing.
I'll go make one.
Thank you. All right, Reggie, take us out of here.
All right. Sam, can't thank you for bringing that camp magic to this podcast. I can't speak for Caitlin and James, but I felt it. Felt it all up inside of me. So
The
thank
4-H
you
spirit.
so much. And thank you for supporting this podcast. I do know for a fact that you were one of the first people to acknowledge this podcast publicly. And that I truly appreciate that because that's a cosign from somebody that's respected in our organization. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Mason, you got a quote of the day, sir?
Of course I do. The quote is, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams."
Hey, everybody, be safe out here. You know what you need to do by this point, so I don't even need to say it. Be safe. We're back next week. We have another guest next week. I think you'll be interested to find out who it is. Sam, mute your mic. Caitlin, James, mute your mic. Everybody, it's the Mute Your Mic podcast.
The name of the podcast is Mute Your Mic, in case anybody missed that.
Yeah, mute your mic. And you know what? I'm not even going to edit that out.
Say it again for the people in the back, though.
All right, everyone.
Sam, what's the name of the podcast?
Mute your mic.
We're out of here. Bye.
Well, good evening. It's me again. Little old Joe Clark on the dulcimer. Get things started off. I got another story for you. Another Jack tale. Because you know, it occurred to me when I was thinking about these stories that I'm reading and telling that many of you don't recognize Jack. But you all know Jack because Jack is the same Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk. But in this book, he's called Jack and the Bean Tree. But this is the same Jack with the same stories that you're reading about. The Jack you all know and love from that beanstalk. So keep that in mind. Well, I got another story for you. This one's called Cat and Mouse. And a lot of these stories, they come from other stories. So as I read this here book and story, I want you to think about, is there another story that I've heard that's similar? So kick back, relax, close your eyes, and enjoy the shenanigans that Jack gets himself into. So let's start with Cat and Mouse. One time the boy's daddy decided he'd give them $100 apiece and let them go out by themselves to see what they'd do with it. Told them to be gone 1 year and then come back so he could see which one of them made the best out of his money. Well, the three of them set out together down the big road. Then Will says, "Now when we come to where the road forks 3 ways, we'll separate. There ain't no use in us going all together." So when they come to a crossroads, they stopped and talked a while. It
Directly, Will called Tom off to the side, and they went to whispering. Then they both went over to Jack, throwed him down, and took every cent of his money, divided it, and left Jack a-laying there in the dirt. Will took one side road, and Tom took the other. Jack got to his senses pretty soon and sat there a little while trying to study what to do. Then he decided he'd go on and see what luck he might have. So he walked out in the middle of the crossroads and throwed up his hat in the air. Whichever road it landed in, he was going to go that way. Well, his hat landed in the road straight ahead, so he took it and on he went. It was an old road, not traveled much. Pretty soon Jack landed way out in the lonesome wilderness of a place. Went on and went on. The road pretty nearly covered up with grass and briars. Directly, he come to a fine-looking white house out there. Jack could see signs of somebody living there, and he had to have some place to stay the night. He hated to holler 'cause he was so ragged and dirty, but he knowed there wasn't nothing like trying, so he hollered hello and waited a while. Nobody come out. So he went to the door and he pulled the doorbell. The door opened and a big cat came out. Jack didn't know what to think of that. The cat sat there looking at him, and there didn't no person come to the door. So Jack hollered again, "Who keeps house?" "Cat and mouse," says the cat. "Law me," says Jack, "I've done got to a country where cats can talk." "Yes," the cat told him, "there's an old witch out here. She got all my family but me and my sister. She witched her into a cat, then to a mouse, and me into a cat. She'll try to witch me into a mouse tonight." Then Jack looked and saw a mouse creep out one side of the door and says, "Well, is there anything I can do to keep the old witch from bothering you?" "Probably might be," says the cat. "You can help me, but my sister, she'll stay a mouse. There can't nothing be done for you once she gets you into a mouse. You stay there by the door tonight and kill any kind of big varmints you see, and it'll keep the witch off." Well, Jack got a big club and got before the door, and when it got plumb thick dark, all sorts of bears and painters and big wild animals came up the steps. Jack would knock 'em and beat 'em with his club, keep a-fighting all night long. Next morning, that cat came out, and it was a little bit bigger. Looked a little bit like a girl. "Now tonight," she says, "the old witch will send middle-sized varmints. You keep them off too." Jack picked around that day and got what berries and such he could find to eat. Cut him a middle-sized club. When it commenced to getting dark, he got by the door again. Then all kinds of pies and snakes and wildcats and weasels and boomers and groundhogs came and tried to get in. Jack hit him with his club and knocked him off the porch and kept giving it to him till daylight. Then the door opened and that girl came out. She was pretty near the right size that time, but she still had some signs of a cat's claws and whiskers and ears. She says to Jack, "You done fine last night, Jack. Now tonight she'll send all sorts of little varmints. You'll have a time of it, I expect." So Jack ate a few blackberries and huckleberries that day and whittled him out some paddles and swatters, and took up his stand by the door when night came. And all sorts of pies and scorpions and insects and spiders and hornets and big ants came out and tried to cross the door sill. But Jack went to work with his swatters and his paddles, and it was a sight of the world how he went after 'em. He thought there'd be a pile of dead things there when he got daylight, but when it got light enough for him to see, there wasn't a thing there on the porch. Now the door opened, and there stood the prettiest girl you ever looked at. "You did real well, Jack," she says. "You come on in the house now, and I'll fix you something to eat." She baked Jack some cornbread and fixed him some coffee, and while he was eating, she says to him, "Now you won't have nothing to contend with tonight but the old witch herself. You got shed of all the plagues she had. Now when she comes in, you be sure and not let her do anything for you. You remember now, if you let her do one thing for you, she'll witch us both into cats." So that night, that girl went and hid somewhere. And Jack, he found him a needle and some thread, pulled up for the fire, and went to patching his old raggedy coat. It wasn't long till a little old ugly wrinkled up woman came a-hobbling in the door. Looked like she was about 100 years old. Her nose and her chin was so long they hung down a-wobbling. She got a chair and pulled up close to Jack, says, "How to do, Jack?" "How to do, ma'am?" "Let me do that for you, Jack. It's so awkward seeing a man try to patch." "No," says Jack, "I'll do my own patching." The old witch looked sort of outdone, but Jack kept right on. And directly he got up to fix him a little supper. Got some meal in a pan and started mixing bread. "Let me do that for you, Jack. I never did like to see a man try to make bread." "Nope," says Jack, "I fix bread all right." Then he went to the fire and raked him out some coals and set the skillet over 'em. Then he cut some meat and started frying. "Let me tend to meat for you, Jack. I never saw anything so awkward as a man trying to cook." "No, thank you, ma'am," says Jack. "I don't want you messing with my meat. I'll tend it myself." Well, when Jack turned around to get his bread, that old witch got hold of the knife that went to turn Jack's meat over. There was an old flesh fork a-hanging there. Big old fork they used to cook meat on. Jack grabbed that up and ran at the old woman with it, hooked her and rammed her right into the fire. He held her down between the black backlog and the forestick. Such a cracking and a popping and a frying and a singeing you never saw such. Jack kept her there till she burnt up. Then there stood that girl, just a-laughing. "You sure got her then, Jack. There'll be no more witchery done around here." So she fixed Jack a nice supper, and the next morning when they went out, that place was just full of fine livestock. Chickens and hogs and sheep and cattle and horses, and the road was cleared out and the crops all standing in the field. That girl says to Jack, "Everything here belongs to you now, Jack, for killing that witch." "You too?" says Jack. "Well," she says, "yes, if you say so." "I'll sure say so," says Jack. "You're the main part of the property." So they went and got 2 fine horses and hitched them up to the surrey and went to the store, and Jack got a new suit of clothes and then found him a preacher and got married. Jack, he went to work about the place, tending his crops and his livestock, and that young woman, she cooked and did the washing and the milking and the churning and all. And then Jack got to studying how the year was about up. And then Jack decided it was time to go. So he told the girl about how he and Will and Tom had started out and said they'd better fix up pretty soon to go back and see his daddy. So they got ready and pulled out with the team and buggy one morning. Jack had got his old clothes and throwed them in under the seat. That girl had a pet fox, and they took it along too. They came inside of Jack's house, and he said to her, "You wait here a minute. I want to see what all's done happened while I've been gone, and see if Will and Tom got back yet." His father saw him to the gate and says, "Hello, Jack. Glad to see you. You look like you must not have had any luck. I see you got the same suit of clothes on." "Will and Tom come?" Jack asked. "Yes, they got in early this morning. They got new clothes, and both of them married, nice-looking women. You wait here, Jack, and let me go get you one of my suits of clothes so you'll have something better to wear when you come in." "No," Jack told him, I'll just go ahead like I am." So he went in the house, and when Will and Tom saw him in his same ragged overalls and coat, they commenced to laughing and making fun of him. And their wives, they slipped around and pinned dish rags to his coattails. Jack didn't pay no mind. He talked to his daddy and his mother a while, and every now and again he'd squeeze down on that fox and he'd say, "Gold enough, but none for you." Will and Tom, they couldn't understand that. Then directly Jack went on back where he had left his wife. He got his good new suit of clothes on again, and then him and his wife drove the surrey on down to the gate, hitched the horse, and Jack took the pet fox under his arm. Will looked out and saw him, says, "Who's that?" Tom came and looked. "Ain't nobody we know. It's rich folks. What you reckon they want?" Their wives, they came and peeked around the door, and about that time Jack's mother looked out the window and says, "That's Jack." "No," says Will. "Why, that can't be Jack." "Yes, it is too," says Tom. "It is Jack, and look what a pretty fine dressed woman he's got." Law me, says Will's wife. It'll not do for her to see the way I am. And she ran and hid under the bed. Then Tom gave his wife a shove and says, you run hide somewhere quick. Don't let her see you in that old cotton dress. And she jumped off the porch and crawled in under the house. Jack brought his wife on in and made her known to his daddy and his mother. Will and Tom just stood there. Finally, Jack's wife said to him, I thought Jack told me you boys was married. Where's your wives at? Mine's under the bed, says Will. She can come out if she wants to. She crawled out from under the bed, had feathers and dust in her hair. Then Jack's woman asked if the other one was home, and Tom's wife, she scrambled out from under the floorboards with her hair full of trash and dirt all over her. Jack's wife spoke nice to him, and they all talked a while. Jack squeezed down that fox directly, and it said, gold enough, but none for you. And by that time, Will and Tom knowed what it meant. Well, Jack took his daddy and his mother on back with him and his wife, and they all was independent rich. Will and Tom never did do much good, and Jack and his wife and his folks, they lived happy. And that's the tale of the cat and mouse. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you'll join me again. Thank you.